Florida history story time. Many of y'all know I do a lot of history story time about my home state of Minnesota, but my sort of second home state that I grew up in, Florida, has one of my absolute favorite U.S. history stories. Now, if you've been to the Florida Keys, specifically Key West, even if it's your first time hearing this story, it probably won't surprise you. And if you haven't been to Key West, you should definitely go, because it is like no other place in the country. The Keys are a completely different vibe than the rest of that Looney Tunes state they're dangling off the end of, and they just have this special brand of zero fucks giving attitude and culture that is just, it's magnificent. So our story starts in 1982. And Florida in the 1980s, much like today, was an absolute shit show. And at the time, a massive portion of the drugs being smuggled into the United States were coming in through South Florida, a lot of it through the Keys. And so federal agents decided it would be a fun idea to set up a checkpoint right at the end of US 1 where everybody leaving the Keys had to go through. It was basically a border crossing inside the United States where they were checking for undocumented immigrants and narcotics. And now this was annoying enough for the citizens of the Keys who had to go through this unconstitutional checkpoint every time they wanted to get to the mainland. But it also put a huge damper in tourism, which is by far Key West's biggest industry. Mayor Wardlow of Key West continued to try and fail to get the roadblock removed. In his final attempt to get the roadblock removed illegally, he flew to Miami and petitioned a judge for an injunction. And when that failed, he walked outside to waiting reporters and informed them that Key West would be seceding from the Union. He then had his plane buzz the roadblock as he flew back to Key West. He then announced the secession of the Conch Republic and hastily set up a new government. Wardlow became prime minister and they had 30 new government officials, including the Secretary of Underwater Affairs. They then dressed a dude up like a US Navy sailor and declared war on the United States by breaking a piece of stale Cuban bread over his head. And then the Conchs, the citizens of the Conch Republic, went on to attack federal agents and Coast Guard personnel who were at this secession and declaration of war by throwing conch fritters and stale Cuban bread at them. 1 minute later, Prime Minister Wardlow surrendered to the United States and then requested $1 billion in foreign aid to compensate for the long federal siege of their nation. And now through all of this, they may not have gotten their $1 billion, but they did get their roadblock removed. And they did so in the most Key West way possible. And the Conch Republic lived to fight another day. In 1995, the Army's 478th Civil Affairs Battalion, say that 3 times fast, were planning on doing a mock invasion and occupation of Key West as a training exercise. But they didn't inform Key West officials. So when they heard about it, and being that it's Key West, a bunch of firefighting vessels and private boats sailed out to fend off their invaders and attacked them with water balloons and hoses, stale Cuban bread, and conch fritters. And they did this till the Naval Command actually surrendered to the Conch Republic. So yeah, if you ever get the chance, you should visit Key West. It's pretty awesome.